This is KSUT Public Radio. Regional news is next. We start with a report from Colorado Newsline. Several states, including Colorado, Massachusetts, New Mexico, New York, and Pennsylvania, announced that they would be breaking with restrictive eligibility policies unveiled by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration on the newly approved COVID-19 vaccines for the fall season. Previous FDA policy recommended that COVID-19 vaccine booster shots be made available to anyone 6 months or older, regardless of their health status. But in August, the federal agency announced restrictions for the new shots. The FDA limited access to the vaccines to people who are 65 and older and to younger people with at least one underlying health condition, such as asthma or obesity, that would put them at risk of developing a severe illness without a booster shot. Children are eligible only if a medical provider is consulted. Additionally, the Pfizer vaccine, one of the 3 that were approved, will no longer be available for any child under 5. Colorado and New Mexico state officials have signed public health orders asking state agencies to take the steps necessary to require insurers to cover the vaccines and instructing pharmacists to provide the shots without a doctor's note. With federal tax credits going away sooner than expected, it's going to be more expensive to build wind and solar projects. In Colorado, state officials are hoping to keep costs down for consumers by speeding up large-scale renewable energy projects. The Rocky Mountain Community Radio Coalition's Carolyn Yanis has more.
Tax credits from Biden-era climate legislation were originally set to expire in the 2030s and would have offset significant building costs. Now, wind and solar projects that are built and come online after 2027 will no longer be eligible for those credits, pushing up deadlines. Will Tour, executive director of the Colorado Energy Office, says state agencies are working to streamline the permitting process for renewables.
Making sure that we're moving quickly, that projects that could be eligible for federal tax credits move sort of to the front of the line to make sure that they are able to, or more likely to be able to meet those new federal deadlines.
In addition, Xcel Energy, with the Energy Office's support, is looking to speed up approvals for about 4,000 megawatts of new wind and solar to still be eligible for federal credits. Caroline Yanez, Rocky Mountain Community Radio.
The transgender woman who sued the state of Idaho to overturn its first-in-the-nation ban on some trans sports now wants to call it quits. For the Mountain West News Bureau, James Dawson brings us the story.
Lindsay Hecox, a transgender Boise State student, sued Idaho in 2020 over its law around transgender athletes. Legislators had recently passed the bill banning trans girls and women from playing on school sports teams that align with their gender identity. Idaho has been unable to enforce the law after 2 federal courts halted its implementation. But late last week, Hecox voluntarily dismissed her case shortly before the U.S. Supreme Court was scheduled to consider it and cannot refile the lawsuit. In court documents, she said she's afraid that she'll continue to be subjected to harassment affecting her health and safety. Idaho's Solicitor General told justices he intends to oppose dismissing Hecox's case, given the work his office has put into preparing for it. A similar case on transgender sports participation from West Virginia is still set to go before the U.S. Supreme Court this session. James Dawson, Boise State Public Radio News.
The new law that eliminates federal taxes on workers' tips is now in effect. As the Mountain West News Bureau's Yvette Fernandez reports, the deduction could help workers in tourist areas.
About 2.5% of U.S. workers receive tips as part of their income. That percentage is higher in states that rely on service and tourism. Nevada tops the list with the most tipped workers, according to the nonpartisan Tax Policy Center. The provision has a cap of $25,000, meaning tipped workers can only deduct up to that amount from their income tax. Todd Cox, an accountant in the tourist mecca of Las Vegas, says the savings can be significant.
Make sure your employer is filing your W-2 properly and make sure that you're utilizing all of the deductions that you're eligible for, because it can be a really big benefit to you and translate into thousands of dollars of tax savings.
The Trump-backed deduction remains in effect through 2028. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Yvette Fernandez.
The federal government has issued new guidelines to wildland firefighters for the voluntary use of protective masks. As the Mountain West News Bureau's Murphy Woodhouse reports, this move comes as knowledge about long-term health risks keeps growing.
That new guidance says that N95 respirators approved by the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health will be available for firefighters. However, the guidance notes that there is not yet an approved mask for arduous work directly on the fire line. During a U.S. House oversight hearing Tuesday, Forest Service Chief Tom Schultz was asked by representatives about efforts to better protect the health of firefighters. The hearing comes in the wake of reporting by the New York Times highlighting what it called an occupational health crisis. Here's Democratic California Representative Jared Huffman.
We talked about the New York Times piece. Chief, do you feel like the Forest Service is doing everything that it can and should do?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Huffman, I think there's always more work to do.
Recent research found that wildland firefighters are exposed to at least 31 known carcinogens on the line. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Murphy Woodhouse.
Next week is Latino Conservation Week, which celebrates and encourages Latinos enjoying and protecting the environment. This year it's taking place in a very different political climate, marked by increased immigration enforcement and attempts to remove protections for public lands. The Rocky Mountain Community Radio's Carolyn Llanes brings us the story.
As part of Latino Conservation Week, events often highlight the barriers the Latino community, especially recent immigrants, face in outdoor recreation. Alejandro Jaquez is the Latino Outreach Coordinator with public lands advocacy group Wilderness Workshop in Western Colorado.
There are going to be other folks who speak your language who can help you get oriented with the different trails, different activities that are offered here.
He says this year they're focusing on smaller Latino Conservation Week events, especially with increased immigration enforcement driving fear and uncertainty.
We want folks to remember that our neighbors are here to support each other, that we're putting on events that are welcoming, that are safe.
Jaquez says these positive experiences often push people to get more involved in conservation efforts. Caroline Llanes, Rocky Mountain Community Radio.
We conclude this regional news segment with two stories from the Colorado Capital News Alliance. Republican State Senator Barbara Kirkmeyer has launched her campaign for Colorado governor. The Brighton lawmaker kicked off her bid last night at an event in Fort Lupton.
It's time for a governor who knows how to govern. It's time for a leader who will get to work for you, for your family, and for Colorado's future.
Kirkmeyer is a prominent figure in Colorado politics. She serves on the legislature's Joint Budget Committee and has unsuccessfully run twice for Congress. She also spent 2 decades as a Weld County commissioner and supported a failed push for secession in 2013. With Governor Jared Polis term limited, Kirkmeyer is joining a growing Republican field that includes Republican Representatives Scott Bottoms and Senator Mark Baisley. Colorado hasn't elected a Republican governor since 2002. Also from the Colorado Capital News Alliance, Colorado's November ballot is official. Voters will weigh in on 2 statewide initiatives this year. Propositions LL and MM both deal with funding for food assistance. If approved, Proposition MM would fully fund Colorado's free school meals program. It would also cover the state's share of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP, which is commonly called food stamps, and that's a response to federal cuts to SNAP. To raise the money, Proposition MM would increase taxes on people earning at least $300,000 a year. The second initiative, Proposition LL, would let the state use all the money it raises for the programs, even if it collects more than originally projected. Content produced by the Colorado Capital News Alliance is funded in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Support for local and regional news on KSUT Public Radio also comes from the Colorado Housing and Finance Authority.
Support for public policy reporting comes from the Gay and Lesbian Fund for Colorado, promoting programs designed to ensure all Coloradans have the same opportunity to thrive. More information is online at gayandlesbianfund.org.